Well, this right here is good enough reason for me to be anti marriage, but let's see where this topic goes. So, I've been seeing a lot of attention focused on marriage and abstinence and the community of people that wait until marriage to have sex. And I've always been a little fascinated by this because at an early age, I was very aware that I would not be waiting until marriage to have sex. Even growing up in the 90s and dealing with the whole I'm gay and nobody else is gay, nobody that I know of is, nobody talks about it. I still knew I was going to have sex before marriage. Marriage wasn't even a possibility growing up as a gay kid. I don't know how much I actually really thought or cared about that. I think being lucky enough to be wired the way that boys are in our country, I didn't focus on my future that way. I didn't look for somebody else to validate me. I was just worried about what I was going to do. And I think that's a lot of pressure that women take on, especially in this country. I'm sure others alike. But it's hard when society expects certain things of you and you don't necessarily want to meet those expectations. Or you're really confused how, and you spend your whole life trying to figure out what you're going to do to please society when if you just lived your life, it would happen naturally. But one of my best friends waited until marriage to have sex. There's technicalities, of course. Some people say that any sexual activity at all counts. Others say that just like vaginal or anal penetration would be sex. So that kind of covers whether it's hetero or homosexual sex. However, just the act alone, the act of seeking out sex or having sex with your partner before marriage is kind of what I wanted to focus on today because I looked it up and actually it says 95% of Americans do have premarital sex and do not wait, but that does leave 3 to 5% that do wait, and that might sound really, really small, but that's upwards of 10 million people. That's a lot of people, and it's not all women. So it's fascinating to me to see and hear reasons for people who want to wait until marriage, everything from religious views or medical reasons to the choice of just wanting to not be a sexual object to the person you want to spend the rest of your life with. I think it's really cool and it's a fascinating topic to discuss. Myself, it wouldn't have made sense because from a very early age I was also not really into the idea of marriage. I never thought it was for me. I guess that had probably something to do with being gay. But also, I thought the idea of joining a club that others weren't allowed to was really gross. And being a teenager, I remember thinking, well, okay, so I have family members or friends that are going off and getting married when they know that gay people aren't allowed to. And 50 years prior to that, blacks and whites weren't allowed to marry each other. And 50 years before that, I mean, you can keep digging as to why this is such an icky tradition that we keep. It started with men trading their daughters and they were property. So like the idea of the sanctity of marriage being ruined by gays, I guess, kind of forced me into a position to think it was all a joke anyway. And I knew that the only real reason I would ever even consider the idea was for the tax benefits, the money. Because other than that, I could give a shit if a piece of paper told me I loved someone. That's a choice you make inside. So I never wanted to be in a situation where I was dating someone and I couldn't just walk away when shit got bad or we didn't want to be together. I don't want to do the divorce process. I want to be an adult and make decisions for myself. So I was always really anti marriage, so it didn't make sense for me to even fathom the idea of waiting until marriage to have sex. Plus, I'm fucking horny, like, all the time. However, I do have that friend who waited, and we would have such interesting conversations about why. And she was stunning, beautiful, could have had a plethora of men, especially, in high school, developed early, blonde bombshell. She was really funny, cool to hang out with, and yet there was something keeping her from experiencing the sexual side of her personality. And the hard part for me is not to pry, because I'm a curious person by nature, so I have a billion questions. But I know that when it came to her, she was a little more shy broaching the topic. Still kind of is. We still struggle a little bit to get to the honesty there. But I think it's more related to personal things that she went through on her journey. And I think the cool part of talking to people who decide to remain virgins until marriage is take them as an individual basis, because the stories are fascinating. I mean, some are the generic, I'm waiting because I believe that my religion expects me to wait, blah, blah, blah. Those are kind of the easy reads, the breeze over, give me the quick versions. But there are some people with fascinating reasons why, down to if you even orgasm by yourself, it stunts the root chakra and doesn't move energy further up. And, like, just, I don't even know much into that. I want to study it because I'm fascinated by our chakras. However, people have these fascinating reasons, and it's really cool. I'm most fascinated with men who decide to wait, and not even just men, but heterosexual men. I don't understand. It's like you're given vagina on a platter at a very young age in this country. I mean, dads are encouraged to take sons to titty bars and drink beer and sleep around when you're a teenager, but if women did that, God forbid, the world would go up in flames. It's so weird, the sexism that exists with sex. It's interesting. But for example, in the 1950s, 11% of people were waiting and not having premarital sex, which actually seems low to me, in personal opinion, for the 1950s. I guess in my head I assumed that everybody was, because that's how it was being portrayed in the media and on television. And we're just down to 3% now. So, yeah, an 8% jump. But still, if you think about it, it wasn't all that high to begin with. I mean, people as a whole just kind of want to get it in, it seems like. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's what I'm saying. The statistics also showed that more men wait than you think, because the ratio is about 6 to 4, which means if you took a group of 100 people that are all waiting to have sex until marriage, 60 of them would be women and 40 of them would be men. And that's pretty equal. So honestly, more men out there are waiting to have sex until marriage than you even knew. But I think it's really fascinating that this is quite the topic lately. I've seen it everywhere, from Twitter and Facebook to on TV. The View and Wendy Williams were discussing it. Hello, estrogen levels. Okay, my TV viewing may be a little feminine right now, but it varies, okay? But I think it's fascinating having this younger generation and having a polarity. Some people thinking nudity, sex, free love, let's get the 60s back and move into the next period of human existence. And others are holding on to more of a Victorian, pure, I get control of my body, you don't look, you don't touch, you don't comment. It's really interesting. And all of that has to do with how society is handling the conversation about sex. So, next time you're witness to a conversation or a topic on TV or radio or whatever, and it's about sex and marriage and the act of allowing yourself to be vulnerable around another person, really pay attention to what people say and what they stand by and what they're talking about. Is it ego and falsifying truths and all of that they're portraying, saying it's a dirty act? Because it's not. It gives us life. It's not a dirty act. We make it dirty, we put stigmas on things, but I think it's really fascinating to try to get more people to look at the idea of sex and our body and nudity and what all of that encompasses, and what does it really mean, and why are we making it dirty and off limits. I think it's cool getting people to think about this kind of stuff, because I want to move forward to a point where materialism and consumerism doesn't drive the reason we want to put art on our bodies. I want to get to a place where we do it to make a statement. So, with that being said, please contribute to the discussion by adding comments below. I look forward to hearing any and all viewpoints, and I hope you're having an amazing Wednesday. Hump day, as you will. All right, take care of yourselves today, and I will see you tomorrow. Happy humping.